Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, The Total Economic Impact of Avalara. My name is Courtney. I'll be your host for our presentation. Today's webinar is based on a written report done by Forrester that covers the complexities of the tax compliance landscape today, but also the ROI that businesses can see from implementing a tax automation solution. We'll be sharing not only numbers from the studies today, but also some customer success stories of what they've seen after implementing an automation technology. Before we dive into the presentation, a few housekeeping items. So, friendly reminder that on Avalara's side, we cannot provide legal tax advice. Everything we discuss today is for educational purposes only, but as always, we will do our best to answer any of your questions to the best of our abilities. And next on your screen is our safe harbor policy. Please take a moment to review this while I continue with some additional housekeeping items. As most of you know, with many of our presentations, we are recording today's event. So if you'd like to listen to it again or even share it with a colleague after the presentation, you will receive a link to the recording within the next 24 hours. Keep an eye on your email inboxes for that. And let's review the console that we're looking at, the webinar console. So all of the windows that you see on there can be completely customized. Feel free to move them around or resize them to your liking. On the left-hand side of the console, we have a Q&A box that you can use to interact with us today. We will be responding to questions individually as we're able to throughout today's presentation. And then we also have some time set aside at the end of the presentation for live Q&A with our speakers as well, so be sure to stick around for that. If you're interested in getting more individualized answers to your questions today, there is a box on the console where you can actually schedule a time to speak with one of Avalara's tax automation specialists. Like I said, we're not tax advisors, but we can provide you more information about your individual tax obligations and if a tax automation solution could be the right fit for you. We also have some related resources on the console. That's where you can download your own copy of today's presentation slides if you'd like to save them for later. And then we also have some other resources there that dive deeper into some of the topics that we'll be covering today, including a link to the written Forrester Total Economic Impact Study if you'd like to deep dive into that. Next up, I wanted to introduce our speakers. So today we're joined by a great lineup of presenters. First up, we have Meng Liu, who is a senior analyst at Forrester. Meng has done a comprehensive research and analysis of the fintech, compliance management, and finance automation industries. And he's going to share some of his key findings around the challenges of compliance for businesses today and how CFOs are keeping up. Next, we have Stephanie Slate, a senior consultant for Forrester. She was very involved in the Forrester Economic Impact Study for Avalara, so she'll be sharing some of the key findings from that study. And last but not least, we have Christine Martin with us. She is a senior solutions consultant and one of my colleagues here at Avalara, and she has years of experience in working with businesses to implement Avalara's automation solutions. So she's going to share some of her individual experiences and the benefits that those companies see from using tax automation and what our solutions can offer. Next, let's take a quick glance at the flow of today's presentation. So Meng is going to start us off by taking a look at how tax compliance automation is transforming finance. Then we'll pass it over to Christine, who will give an overview of who Avalara is and why we wanted to work with Forrester for this study. Then we'll learn more about some of the pain points that businesses are experiencing with tax compliance today. Then we'll dive into the study itself and some of the results from that. So the quantified and unquantified benefits of Avalara and the total economic impact of Avalara. Then, like I said, we will have some time for Q&A at the end of that. So that's all from me. Next up, I'm going to pass it over to Meng to dive into tax compliance automation and how it's transforming finance. Meng, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm very happy here today to share some of our latest findings about tax automation, tax compliance automation, and how that can transform the CFO office, transform the finance operations. So Firstly, I want to highlight what could be the three key reasons why tax compliance automation is so important for the CFO office, for the CFO team. So the first key reason is that the economic uncertainty reminded CFOs of the importance of their bottom line, which is cash and cash management. And the tax compliance automation is a very key component that can help the CFO team to reduce their operating costs, save some cash, and also to improve on the forecast of their future cash flow by analyzing, capturing all the data from the tax and invoices. So that's going to be help a lot for the CFO team to maintain their bottom line. So as we know, this year the recession concern is fading. However, the economic uncertainty is still there. We see the inflation still there, and also some geopolitical tensions are still there. So for CFO and finance team, 2024 is still would be a very challenging year for them. So maintain their bottom line, maintain their cash is very important. The second point I want to highlight here is tax compliance automation can also to bring a more efficient and effective financial operations, which can help the CFO team to accelerate their finance transformation. As we know, the organizations across the globe are all going through digital transformation. So the CFO office also needs to transform the finance operations. So tax compliance automation can help a lot CFO office on their digital transformation journey. So that is the second reason why it's becoming increasingly important for the finance team. The last but not the least, we see the global tax compliance and invoicing compliance is going to be increasingly complex. But the tax compliance in different jurisdictions is a prerequisite for many organizations to operate globally. As we know, as of today, many businesses were, born as a global business. For instance, you can imagine a lot of technology companies, software companies, they are selling technology solutions globally, very seamlessly, without much, frictions because of the evolution of API of cloud. However, they need to tackle the different tax regulations, compliance, and requirement in different jurisdictions. So we see increasing demand from the end user organizations, from the invoicing and tax compliance perspective. So speaking about the tax compliance, let's first look at the U.S. market. So in the U.S. market, the sales tax actually is a quite complex, have a lot of quite complex regulatory requirements. For instance, in the U.S. market, we have 13,000 states and sales and use tax jurisdictions. So that's pretty complex. And in 2023 last year, we see more than 11,192 sales and tax rates updates in the U.S. market alone. And we also see around 86,000 taxability updates in US and Canada, and also around 100,000 US sales tax holiday rule updates. And if we look at the international rate updates, it's about over 300. And also, if we look at the international taxability updates, it's more than 6,000. So all those stats looks quite overwhelming for the tax and finance professionals. So if an organization purely is depending on their, human tax and, finance staff, it will be quite difficult to manage these very overwhelming very complex, tax regulatory requirement in the U.S. market. And if we look at the international market, we see the tax and e-invoicing compliance is even more complex. So we see the e-invoicing mandates have been increasingly released in different countries and regions, especially after the pandemic. We see the higher adoption of electronic invoices. But along with this adoption of e-invoices, we also see many countries have released new e-invoicing mandates. So after 2020, we see every year there will be double-digit, increase of new e-invoicing mandates that have been released in different countries. So these all create a lot of complexities for the tax and e-invoicing compliance in different geographies and regions. So what we can, expect from the tax compliance automation solution, what are some of the key benefits? So the first key benefit, definitely, like I mentioned in the previous slide, is help the CFO team to address the complexity in the e-invoicing and tax compliance, because human staff can always make a lot of mistakes and their capacity is limited. However, if we rely on more advanced software solutions, tax compliance software solutions, many of those challenges can be resolved very seamlessly. So help the CFO team to manage the tax and e-invoicing compliance is one of the key benefits we can realize from a tax compliance automation solution. And secondly, the tax compliance automation solution can also significantly streamline and automate very complex tax calculations. Like I mentioned earlier, the U.S. sales tax is quite complex. You have different jurisdictions, different updates. But those type of tax compliance automation solution can automatically calculate, based on the latest updates, the U.S. tax regulations, sales tax regulations. And this can also be applicable to value-added tax, for instance, in European market and in Asia Pacific. And the third key benefit we can expect from the tax compliance automation solution is it can provide a very visualized reporting and analysis of the financial implications of tax and e-invoices. So actually, all the tax reporting and the e-invoices, embedded with a significant amount of data. So the tax compliance automation solution can capture all those data, either it's structured data or unstructured data, and can leverage this data to create a lot of insights that can help the CFO team to make better financial and planning decisions. So that could be very helpful. And finally, let's look at some of the key dynamics of the tax compliance automation market. So the first dynamic I want to mention here is the main market trend for tax compliance automation. So we see the software as a service model, SaaS model, is gaining a lot of ground in the tax compliance automation space, because SaaS-based solution can bring a lot of benefits. For instance, it's more scalable than on-premises solution. It can be, bringing much richer features and get the most updated features. It can also be more cost-effective, based on the usage of those organizations. So all those benefits has driven the, higher adoption of SaaS-based tax compliance automation solutions. This is the first market trend we have observed. The second point I want to highlight here is the primary challenge for tax compliance automation. So what we heard the most from Forrester's clients is the disconnected system actually created a lot of silos and inefficiencies, and also has led to many integration challenges and also some communication issues. So if the organization can select a tax compliance automation solution that can seamlessly integrate with their existing tech stack with some other systems like invoicing systems, the order management systems, procurement systems, banking system, that can ease the complexity a lot and also can address this pain point from the disconnected system. So a seamless integration and also some level of interoperability is quite demanding from the client side. The last point, but not the least, is about key technology innovations in the tax compliance automation space. So as you can imagine, we're going to talk about AI. So AI is definitely the key game changer for the tax compliance automation. And AI is also a buzzword we have heard a lot since last year because of the very fast development of generative AI. And generative AI actually have a lot of use cases in the tax compliance automation space. For instance, it can help the tax and finance professionals, to automatically create some emails for, strengthen their, improve their communication productivity. It can also, answer the questions from tax and finance professionals staff regarding, for instance, tax rate updates in different jurisdictions. And also can augment the existing chatbot or virtual assistant to make the answers more intelligent and more precise. And besides generative AI, we also see some other advanced AI technologies that can make very big impact on the tax compliance automation landscape. For instance, predictive AI is another key AI technology. Predictive AI can help the finance professional, tax professionals to predict the future cash flow based on the analysis of the tax data, invoicing data. So that could be very helpful for the entire CFO office. And prescriptive AI can also create a lot of very timely and very good recommendation for the tax professionals, helps them to improve their existing workflows and also their existing processes. So all of these can take the tax automation to the next level to make it more intelligent and automate some of the last mile human manual heavy tasks. So this is what we can expect more from the leveraging advanced AI technologies. So that's all my sharing today. Next, I will hand over to Christine.
All right, Christine, you want to kick us off on what is Avalara?
I sure will. Thanks so much. Well, not just what is Avalara, but who is Avalara? Avalara is here to help you execute your compliance game plan. We make it simple for you every step along the way so that you can focus on your business. We've built an industry-leading cloud-based end-to-end tax compliance solution to help you meet those goals. You need information about what you sell and where you sell, but you need it to be readable and useful. You need to be able to manage exemption certificates both to your vendors and from your customers. And you need to calculate tax in all of your systems. And then once you've collected all of that tax or accrued that tax, you've got a way to file those returns so that you're in compliance with all the government agencies. Well, let's talk about how Avalara addresses these challenges through the Avalara Compliance Suite. We've created our product portfolio to handle tax compliance around these functions, plus a few others. Avalara recognizes all companies exist to make sales and purchases. Before they can begin transacting, they have to become compliant, registered, and licenses. If you move into a new jurisdiction or reach a new nexus threshold, you'll need to register in the state and ensure that you're properly licensed. If you're already doing that along the way in this journey and you have nexus and you didn't know you needed to register and you need to assess the impact of having something done about those taxes that you've collected or not, we've got a solution to help you with that. You may have physical property or leases, or you might have personal property inside those spaces that you're leasing. Either way, there's another form of compliance you need to have to operate your business compliantly, and that's the property tax piece of things. On the selling side of Avalara, you're making sales to your customers. You need to calculate those taxes. You need to collect those taxes. In some cases, your customers may be tax exempt, so you need to collect and manage those exemption certificates. You need to file and remit those taxes that pertain to those transactions. If you're selling globally, there may be requirements for e-invoicing, which we've already talked about too, right? And there are other supporting functions, like you need to do in-depth research to understand taxability and rates and rules so that all of your systems and processes are set up properly and that you're accurately and ultimately timely filing. If you sell globally, you need to assign the appropriate HS code so that your goods are classified properly for customs and duties. And you may want to collect those duties during the sale as opposed to post-sale. We've got solutions to help you with all of those. We offer solutions to help you on the AR side of your business, but let's turn to the purchase side of the business. Your organization buys things. You've got to buy things in order to sell things, right? So you've either been charged tax or you haven't, and the to-do is to verify or approve the taxes on those purchases. In some cases, your company may qualify to purchase tax exempt. So instead of collecting the certificate from your customer, you're now sending certificates to your vendors. You may also be receiving e-invoices, and of course, you need to file returns. There's supporting products here too. You may want to verify the product classification of goods you're purchasing and understand the taxability rules. And you're digitally collecting and filing tax forms. And in this case, you want to collect the W-9s or W-8 forms in particular, so vendors are set up properly and you have a smooth 1099 filing season. We also help you automate those payments to vendors and other payees as well. We've got solutions to help you with that as well. Putting all of this together, we put you in the middle, your customers and vendors on either side. We can see your core products. We're there to help you every step along the way. With all of these products and services, Avalara wanted a way to demonstrate this economic impact for our customers. And what we've done is we've put together all of these solutions, how Avalara impacts our customers, what solutions are available to our customers to help them in this compliance journey. So we have spent some time working with our friends at Forrester, and I'm going to introduce you to Stephanie. And I've been working with Stephanie over the last several months on this project, and Stephanie's going to walk you through this project, share with you the methodology that we've gone through to put this together, and really explain what they've done to show you this total economic impact of using Avalara for your business and helping you make decisions. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Stephanie and take it away.
Thanks so much, Christine. And I'm so psyched to be with you all today. You heard Christine say total economic impact. Well, what the heck is that? What is a Forrester TI case study? So it's a method to understand the total business value that a service or solution provides for an organization. And the objective is to identify all of the factors that affect an investment decision. So in a ground up manner, we identify 4 key components. You can see them on your screen. We have benefits, the business advantages an organization gains by implementing a service or solutions. We have costs. We look at both the licensing costs, but as well as the indirect costs, right? That might be something for implementation or things of that nature, that ongoing maintenance. We also look at flexibility, which is if an organization invests in a solution now, what can they do cheaper, faster? How can they be more agile because of that previous investment? And all of that is risk adjusted. So that allows us to create a really conservative yet realistic view for any potential readers. So we account all the variability that might be there. So it could be something based on industry, the number of tax returns we see an organization have, things like that. And that's what makes the TI, or total economic impact. So how did we create this? As Christine said, we've been working for a couple of months now together, and it's really just a high-level overview of our process. So first and foremost, we do our due diligence. Part of my job is to speak with stakeholders at Avalara, but also I worked with Ming and just got kind of an understanding of the industry and what I needed to know about trends and expectations he wanted to see. I then spoke to 6 Avalara customers to understand why they chose that investment and what their experience was with it. And just so you know, they would have had to have the solution in place for at least 6 months. And from their stories, I create a composite organization, which is essentially a fake company, but it allows me to simplify the results and do the financial analysis that I'm going to walk you through. That gets put into the written case study. Maybe some of you have read it, and then it's reviewed and finalized. So before I go any further, I just have to pause for a quick disclosure. The results that I'm going to go over today are very much at a high level. It's an abridged version of that full case study, which was commissioned by Avalara and delivered by Forrester Consulting. Now, the customers' names were provided by Avalara as they used their products, obviously enough. But I have to stress that Avalara did not speak to the customers, nor were they on the calls. The parents weren't in the room. I got to hear their candid story when we conducted the interviews. Now, we at Forrester have maintained editorial control over the study, so Avalara could not change any of the metrics, nor could they change the findings. Again, that objective third party over here from Forrester, I just wanted to make sure you guys understood some of the disclosures we have to share. So I want to give you a high-level overview of the 3-year impacts. And these are the benefits of using Avalara. So the big takeaway is that for the composite organization, which is just an anonymous representation of Avalara's customers, it receives a return on investment of 153%, benefits of over $770,000. And if we take out the cost of the solution, we come to this nifty little figure called the net present value, or NPV, and that's $465,000. Now, throughout this study, you're going to see pulled quotes from the customers. Again, they told us how they felt, the good, the bad, the ugly, about their experience with Avalara. So I really like to get their voice. And here's one of my favorite quotes. When I'm not on Avalara, on a good day, I'm only 25 to 30% compliant. But when I'm on Avalara, you're probably at 90 to 95 to 100% compliant. And that's a big difference for me. And I think that really says it all. So let's dive in. I want to give you a high-level overview of the 6 customers we interviewed, their organizations and their titles. So you can see there's a variety of industries here, revenue sizes, differences in the number of employees. And again, we've shared quotes throughout the study. So if you're curious about a CFO's experience or a CIO's experience, you can go in and look at those quotes that I attributed to those folks and get kind of that peer-to-peer feedback if you're looking for their point of view, which is nice.
And I think it's so important to understand that we pulled from a variety of industries, right? This wasn't just one industry. This really has this broad impact regardless of the industry. And I think that's an important piece to take away from this too.
100%. This isn't just looking at financial services. This isn't just looking at manufacturing, right? You're getting kind of that peek at this can really apply to across all industries. And if you look at these pain points, I think no matter what industry you're in, if you don't have a solution like this in place, you're going to feel this. So, I mean, feel free to react if you want to put up a emoji or something. But if you're experiencing inefficient manual processes, right? The tax-related tasks consumed a significant amount of time and resources. I heard that time and again in that before state. People just couldn't get a handle on things. Tax exemption certificates were often missing information, right? That was a big issue. The increase in risks and vulnerabilities with growth. Thank you. Yeah, thumbs down. Exactly. Very, very challenging, right? As you're growing, with mergers, acquisition, natural growth, you can reliably forecast the cost and regulations that come with expansion, so you can't make growth decisions. The lack of expertise around tax laws and rates. I've been watching the Q&A. You guys are asking those questions, right? They change, they're intricate. There's a lot going on, and without continuous updates, you're kind of in the dark about what requirements you need. And poor exemption certificate management. I kid you not, I heard about binders full of exemption certificates stowed away in boxes. Like, if there was an audit, how would you find that? So really just painting a picture of what things were like before Avalara was in place. So what did they need in the new solution? I love asking this question. All right, there's an issue in-house. What do you need in order to make that investment? And they said they really wanted to improve productivity so that the internal team can focus on value-added work. And in this current state of the economy, that value-added work piece is definitely something I'm hearing. Improve data quality and accuracy, right? If you want to make really smart decisions, you need the real data that you're looking at, and provide highly skilled personnel with extensive tax expertise to ensure compliance, and really maintaining that those tax processes are followed as taxability grows. So they really needed those three things, and maybe some of you are feeling that way as well. Christine, anything to add from what you're hearing from customers?
You're spot on. To me, the data quality is really driving the accuracy. Junk in, junk out. And having good data helps you make those decisions. It helps your people to become more productive, and it helps you make good decisions. So all of these things really have this impact on a company. And you had mentioned before growth. And what I've seen is an awful lot of merger and acquisition activity happening right now. And having these things in place make that merger and acquisition process a little bit easier. So people are looking for a way to add something to help their business become better, whether it's adding new businesses, adding new divisions, adding new products. And to me, this all comes down to data. That's really what it is.
Absolutely. There's an effectiveness here. We can be more effective. And I think that word is often lost when we do some of these studies, but that's what this is. Our businesses can be more effective. Our processes can be more effective. So let's keep taking a look. Again, as I said, we absolutely love quotes here, but this is one of the quotes that came through in terms of why they chose Avalara. Shopped around for different software company, but it seemed to have the most bells and whistles for what we were looking for as far as consistency, that effectiveness, right? And we wanted an easy way to customize reports for our needs. So Avalara's team actually spent time with this customer to come up with the customized queries that they needed, and that's why they went with them. So again, if it's not something right off the shelf that you can use, they did say there was a way of getting what they needed by working with the team. Okay, so I mentioned the composite organization. It's a little tricky to understand, but this is why we use it. We talked to 6 companies. We have to keep them anonymous. I'm under an NDA. So this is my way of keeping them anonymous, but simplifying the results. So this is a fake company. So if you're wondering what that 153% is based off of, the 465,000 net present value, it's on these specific characteristics. So a revenue of 300 million, 1,000 employees, 2,000 tax exemption certificates, and then they add 100 net new every year, 400 managed annual returns, tax returns. There's 10,000 transactions annually, and then they have 2 IT professionals dedicated to maintenance. What solutions are implemented is they're using AvaTax exemption certificate management, managed returns, and the tax research solution. So that just gives you an understanding of where those numbers came from. And if you have anything different here, say you have 200 managed returns, the estimation for the return on investment would obviously change. So I encourage you to speak to Avalara's sales team. If you're looking at this and being like, I'm slightly off here, I'm a little different, they might be able to calculate something for you just so you get a more personalized estimate. Okay, so I found 5 benefits for the composite organization. I'm going to go through them at a high level. I will get into more detail on each, but you can see here the composite organization sees streamlining tax filing labor savings at $83,000. They achieve tax exemption certificate savings at $97,000. They achieve audit preparation efficiency, meaning they're avoiding penalties. They don't have to pay an external auditor for their labor, and that's $210,000. They reduce spend on third-party services at $317,000. And lastly, they see tax research labor savings, which is valued at $63,000. Christine, reactions. What do we think here?
I think a lot of folks forget about how many people are involved in each of these steps, right? Audit preparation isn't just the person that's managing the audit. It's IT too. It may be somebody from AP or AR. This really demonstrates those indirect costs and all of those departments that are involved in this compliance journey. I worked in industry for over 15 years, and I know that preparing for audits and those exemption certificates was a real pain. I lived the binder world. So this to me really is a good representation of how much you spend amongst multiple departments to stay compliant, and how something like the Avalara solutions can help solve a problem and save you money as well.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get into a little deeper on each benefit. So they're a little more tangible for folks to understand. $83,000, how did we get there? Well, let me explain it. So Avalara has a centralized system of record. That's what I kept hearing from the interviewees. And that was an easy way to collect and have visibility on financial records. So the composite organization, by having this like single source of truth, gains 85% efficiency in the managed return. So they're not looking for stuff, right? There's a lot of time when you're just looking for things, you don't know what folder it's in, you don't know if it's up to date. So that really saves time. So when you think about it, it goes from 50 hours a month to collect documentation to only 7.5 hours with Avalara in place. Think about that time savings. Like, what would you do with that amount of time back? So that's where the 83,000 came from. And as you can see, the CFO of a medical device company, this person was quite funny to speak to. I celebrated by saying, never in my life again will I have to file a state sales tax return. Before Avalara, 40 hours a month, now maybe an hour. Really just remarkable and a tangible understanding of how we figured out these calculations.
I love this concept of a single source of truth, because that's really what this is, right?
Absolutely. No more digging through binders. Speaking of binders,
I feel for them.
Yeah, tax exemption certificates. So the stories I heard about what people were doing made my jaw drop, truly, especially at some of these larger enterprises. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, just craziness. So the one cool thing that I heard is the interviewees told me Avalara's system would not allow any certificates to be uploaded with any errors. So they didn't have to go back and update information. So in the prior state, there would be things scanned in without a signature. Maybe somebody's missing their last name, whatever it was a mess. So it was still there, but it was wrong. So you're actually saving, because you don't have to go back and upload things, like you have to upload it correctly. You're saving 1,248 hours over 3 years. 1,248 hours. Like, that's mind-boggling. That's how much efficiency you're going to get, because Avalara just makes sure that it's updated from the spot. In the before state, we heard from the interviewees, it took about an hour to manage a certificate, kind of back and forth and get the information needed. Now it cuts the time in half when you have Avalara in place. And so for the composite organization, this benefit is valued at $96,000. I'll let you read the quote on your own, but I think it speaks to how quickly certificates can be sent off. Christine, anything to add here?
Not just sent off, but I think about the audit side of this as well.
Yeah.
That trying to find, I lived this, trying to find the needle in the haystack for those exemptions, which missing one exemption certificate has a pretty significant financial impact on the audit. I used to stop going into those binders and just call customers directly, but I spent weeks doing that for every single audit. This was a dream of mine to have, to be able to, in less than a second or less than a minute, find 250 exemption certificates. So I 100% appreciate this because this was my dream back in the day.
Well, let's talk about the audits savings that people are seeing with Avalara, right? So first and foremost, again, it goes back to that centralized location for certificates, returns, et cetera. You have that 85% reduction in time spent on audit prep. You don't have to track anything down, as Christine was saying. Because Avalara helps them be more compliant, the composite organization is able to avoid 2 penalties per year. So just so you know how I calculated this, I heard that there were, penalties in the millions and penalties in the tens of thousands. I ended up putting mine at 37.5, I believe, 32.5. So if you have a different penalty and you can avoid 2 a year, you can calculate that quick math on your own to know what you could potentially save here. What's also wonderful is the composite organization doesn't need an external auditor because Avalara is in place. So they eliminate that as well, needing that extra labor support. So you can see here, it's a $210,000 in savings over 3 years as a result of the efficiency gained in just having stuff in one place, the penalties avoided, and avoiding that third-party auditor.
And this quote says it all, that this person, originally they were in 4 states, now they're in 40. And that's this whole economic nexus concept, right? So now you're in 40 states. Now you've got 40 states that could potentially come in and audit you. Think about the time that you're spending pulling copies of tax returns for those auditors, finding those exemption certificates, doing that research. Really, this economic nexus and that Wayfair case really lends to these statistics in here as well.
And the growth that we talked about earlier with all the mergers and apps. So this is probably the most straightforward bit you're going to see. Very easy to understand. Okay, so before you had to employ a tax professional dedicated to compliance. Maybe they're updating the tax data and the rules and the boundaries and the jurisdictions. They're doing something, but you can actually eliminate the spend on third-party consultants once Avalara is in place. So you had one consultant before that you would ask tax-related questions to. They might be doing research, whatever it might be. And you basically get rid of that $150K a year, which would be the consultant's annual rate. So the savings over 3 years is $317,000. And again, I'll let you read the quote on your own, but it tells you what that person was doing and why you don't need to have those legal costs anymore. Very straightforward to understand, easy peasy. And then the last one is around tax research labor savings. So because of Avalara's continuous updates to tax rates, it reduces the need to do additional calculations and research by 90% for the composite organization. So researching goes from 35 hours a month to only 3. So that's, again, somebody's time that is just doing value-added work now. It can be reallocated to something else. So that equals a $63,000 in savings over 3 years as a result of Avalara. Christine, I don't know if you have anything to add here.
This tax research piece, I mean, think about the audits, the questions that you get from customers. I know when I was in industry, I would get questions from customers all the time. Why did you tax me this way? And we would spend time researching it, whether it was Google, going to the law library and pulling binders out and researching. This is such a great savings on just the ability to easily find information for your customers. Customer satisfaction is super important. So I think being able to get back to your customers with accurate information and reducing some costs as well is just fantastic.
Absolutely. So if those 5 benefits didn't excite you enough, of all that Avalara does, we actually found some unquantified benefits. So these are qualitative, And they still really show powerful measurements of success because it's that holistic value of what Avalara is doing for an organization. So there's 9 of them, by the way. So I'll just read through them rather quickly. But you have decreasing sales tax liabilities, simplifying, expanding into new jurisdictions. I believe we've talked about that a little bit. Gaining that reliable access to expertise, you know where you can turn. Improving processes for salespeople trying to validate certificates. You're going to save sales time now. Reducing shipping errors due to address confirmation. That's something that can really help. Gaining credibility with customers. Again, answering those questions on behalf of your customers. Shifting the focus from business needs rather than to tax decision-making, value-added work. Enhancing confidence in tax compliance. And lastly, improving VDA processes.
Real quick on the shipping piece, I don't think we've quantified this, but with our address validation piece, we're doing this address validation for 2 reasons. 1, so that we can assign a jurisdiction, but 2, the cost that's associated from the FedExes and UPSs and all of these shipping companies that charge you to change an address to a valid address. So it's not just that reduced shipping errors, but it's also the reducing shipping costs as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if I do this project again, we might be able to quantify it.
Right.
So as I said earlier, we look at flexibility because we want to know what can a company do faster because of an investment in a solution. And because of the investment in Avalara, businesses can be more nimble and agile for the future state in the following ways. Enhancing global expansion. I was watching the chat. There are some questions there. But interviewee said that the organizations could expand geographies with confidence, knowing that Avalara offers support around global tax requirements. And then supporting merger and acquisition activities, right? That exemption certificate management technology can help newly acquired customers request appropriate certificates. And this eases additional administrative burden as the organization grows, which is great. So I do have to talk about costs. It's an ROI analysis. I do have to talk about costs. So just at a high level, these are the total risk-adjusted costs for Avalara that the composite organization sees, and it's about $305,000. So this includes $259,000 for annual licensing fees, $35,000 for implementation costs, and $11,000 for internal labor to maintain and train on the solution. So pretty straightforward. Again, if you were to look at the study, you can kind of read how those calculations were made. So one more, because I want to leave time for Q&A. The ROI of Avalara for the composite organization is 153%, with benefits over $770,000 and a net present value of $465,000. What's awesome is Avalara's customers will earn back the cost of their investment in less than 6 months. And as I said earlier, if you have anything different from the composite organization, I think I saw in chat, you're a smaller company, you might have this amount of revenue, these many people, reach out to the Avalara team to get a more personalized estimate. And with that, I think we have time for questions.
Excellent. Thanks for walking through that, Stephanie. That was super helpful. I always find it intriguing and so informative to go back through and read those again and hear about them. What a great project.
Just the quotes alone, your customers were really great at painting the story of pain with all the binders, but just how their lives changed for the better. They were really compelling, and it was an easy case study to write when you have that amount of data available, and they could just see how it transformed their organizations.
One of the questions that I saw in the chat was about asking, is Avalara proactive with informing clients with new tax laws? So our tax research tool, you can certainly subscribe to a updates so that every single week, every month, whichever it is that you choose, you get updates of new tax laws. Let's see if we got any questions in here that relate to this study.
And I can jump in. I saw one question that came in earlier. First of all, thank you both, Christine and Stephanie and Meng, for providing your insight here. Meng unfortunately had to jump off, so we're left with Christine and Stephanie to answer questions here. But someone asked, what about the ROI for smaller companies? It sounds like they have 3 to 10 employees and around $1 million in sales volume. So what are your recommendations for smaller companies like that?
So anyone who's trying to understand a value case study, the best thing for that person is maybe ask your employees right now how much time they're spending on these activities, right? How much time is your employee spending on tax research? How much time is your employee spending on managed returns? How much time is your employee managing audit preparation? So let's say you get that number. Let's say it's 50 hours. It's the same as the composite. You multiply it by 85%, and you're going to get, when you minus the 1, you're going to get what the savings will be, right? Now, instead of it taking 50 hours, it will take 7.5, right? Having that data point and saying to your, employee, is this something that would make your life better, is a really easy way to start. So I don't think there's in my opinion, and Christine, keep me honest, when I do these types of studies, I don't look at business size, I look at efficiency gained. Can you change one person's life, a team's life, from a solution being in place? How impactful can that be? And if you can see the before and after really clearly, I think there's a case to be made that it could be something to look at. Christine, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I like how you mentioned team, because audit preparation isn't just one person, it's multiple people. You may be going to the IT department and asking them to pull 4 years worth of transactions, 4 years worth of data. So start to think about just the one person that's managing audits. Who else do they involve in those audits, and how much time are they spending? I think sometimes we forget about those types of things and who all is involved. When it comes to exemption certificate management, is it the salesperson that's getting those certificates? Well, what do they do with them? They give it to somebody. Who does it go to, and how much time do they spend? And then on audit, who's looking for the certificates? And if they're missing one, who do they go back to? Is it the salesperson? Is it the person in accounts receivable? So really understanding everything in the operation when it comes to audits, to collecting exemption certificates, to finding out new taxability or new tax rates. When there's a new tax rate, who updates the system? How many systems do you have to update? And I think that's the important piece here, is there's a lot of components and a lot of people and a lot of time that are involved in all of this. And being able, how can you save everyone time, the entire team time, by automating some of these solutions?
Absolutely.
All right, let me take a look here and see what other questions we have. I see someone saying that they are considering Avalara as a solution, but interested in getting some recommendations on improving data hygiene and data management before diving into the Avalara investment. Any tips on that?
I'd have to understand a little bit more about their business, so unfortunately I don't have any tips for that one. But data hygiene is important. Are we talking data hygiene of addresses? We've got the ability to do bulk address validation if that's the data hygiene that we're talking about. Or are we talking about the data hygiene of inventory items? There's so many different components in there that relate to data hygiene. I'd hate to just jump out there and throw a solution that doesn't necessarily apply.
No problem. What about tips for getting started with Avalara? Where should a business start? What's the best first step to take?
Oh, my answer for everything is it depends. If you are a distribution company and you've got a whole bunch of exemption certificates, maybe the first step is to go through this campaign process to get new exemption certificates. If you're acquiring a company, maybe to get started is get new exemption certificates for that company that you're acquiring. It could be the address validation piece. There's so many different pieces on how you could get started, and it would depend by industry too. It may be a matter of voluntary disclosure, doing a tax risk assessment. That's one of the things that I had on an earlier slide, is maybe you just don't know if you've been collecting everywhere that you should have been. Talk to somebody about one of these risk assessments where we can look at your data, look at your business and say, hey, we think you created Nexus back on this day, and because of that, here's your estimated liability if you created an excess on that day, and then here's some solutions for you. So I think it really depends on your business and what you're trying to solve for as where you get started.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. We'll give folks, I'm going to go through just a couple of final reminders. So if folks have any other questions, feel free to submit that in that Q&A box. But obviously, we focused today on this total economic impact report that was done by Forrester. And thank you again, Stephanie, for all of your work on that. We do have the link to download that report in the console today. So if you're interested in getting a deep dive on everything that report covered, don't forget to take a look there and download that report. It'll open up in a new window and be there for later. We also have several other resources related to the report and some of the key findings if you're interested in checking those out. And then I will make sure to include a link to that Nexus assessment study that Christine just referenced in the follow-up emails as well. We find that is usually a really valuable way to get started in understanding your tax obligations, especially if you're just getting started or taking a look at some automation solutions or compliance solutions that can help you get a grip on where you need to start and what's the biggest priority. I don't see any other questions that are coming in. So maybe Christine and Stephanie, I'll pass it back over to you in case there are any key takeaways that you want to share before we end.
I'll start with a key takeaway. I wrote the study. I know it's long. I had a lot to say about it, but there's really, I show my math. So if you're at all trying to figure out, could this change my company's lives for my team, my employees, just try to plug in some numbers, right? If you see composite, change it with something that maybe you're experiencing, and you'll get a more personalized estimate. Go through each benefit and just kind of look at the table and be like, okay, I see what she did here. And I'm not a mathematician by trade, so it should be very easy to follow. But that's a real way to get that tangible understanding of what can be improved and the efficiencies you can gain. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by seeing all the Excel tables, don't be, just kind of look at them and see if you can understand that story and how it will impact your organization. So that's my one tip. Christine, I don't know about you.
Thank you so much for your time spent on this and for the time with me that we've spent together talking about this and explaining. I think you've learned more about sales tax and this transaction tax than you ever thought you wanted to know. And I want to leave you guys with, we have a broad suite of solutions. We've talked an awful lot about sales tax and exemption certificates and tax returns. Don't forget about the tax research, the e-invoicing, which is a super hot topic right now, especially internationally. That is something to certainly pay attention to. We're seeing more and more companies that are selling internationally. Make sure you're paying attention to those custom duties, those HS codes, the VAT calculations. Those are important for your business as well. So we're trying to give this holistic solution that keeps your company in compliance and following along this compliance journey as you grow, as you expand, as you acquire new businesses and new lines of products that you may be selling as well. So I certainly hope that this study, this information that Stephanie and the Forrester team has shared with you, they've done some great work to talk with our customers, put all of this together in something that I think really adds an awful lot of value to see how it has an impact on your entire business, not just the one person that's doing these tax returns and the calculations, et cetera. So thank you guys very much for your time on putting this together. Thank you all for the time of spending with us today, learning about this and the process that we've gone through to create this for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to all three of our presenters, Meng, Christine, and Stephanie, for the time you've spent on putting this presentation together and going over the findings of the report. I did see one other last question that came in. We have a couple of other webinars that are going to dive into some of the topics that Meng talked about at the beginning, specifically related to e-invoicing and international compliance, cross-border compliance. So if you're interested in checking those out, getting a deep dive into either of those topics, so check out avalara.com/webinars, and you can see a list of our upcoming webinars there and get registered. So Again, final reminder, we did record this presentation, so you will receive a link to the recording within the next 24 hours if you want to share with a colleague, if you think they would find it valuable. And you'll have access to all of the resources available today on demand as well. So thank you everyone for spending the last hour with us, and we'll see you for one of our future webinars very soon. Have a great day.